Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Johnny's Report. We are doing a live edition for this one, our first, as St. John's falls tonight, 83-82 to Iowa State. It was a crushing loss this evening for St. John's. It really was. We're, of course, coming on just moments after the 1-point loss. Didn't get to see what Coach said after the game, quite frankly. I don't know if I really need to. I think we all pretty much know where St. John's came up short tonight. They came up really, really short in the 3-point category early on. That was evident. Two, their backcourt play has been nothing short of brutal so far this season. I mean, absolutely a brutal start for Ian Jackson, Josan Sannon. I mean, just not able to hit an outside shot, not able for whatever reason to find any kind of consistency, not able to defend too. I think that's something that we all pretty much recognize as an issue that we had last year. And it just feels like thus far, those same problems have continued in the early stages of this season. It just has not been a pretty beginning for St. John's right now. It hasn't been the start of the Ian Jackson era at St. John's we were expecting. Josan Sannon, I think there are times where he does a lot of really good things in terms of shooting from the outside, but, you know, they're not creating looks for him either. And something that was kind of glaring tonight was once Darling left, and I'm not talking about the offense anymore, once Darling left the game, all of a sudden, it just felt like the defensive intensity from the backcourt just wasn't there. Iowa State was able to go up and down the court on St. John's. You could obviously tell Darling is the best defender out of the three. That was extremely brutal to watch, as time and time again, Iowa State was able to hit big shot after big shot. That 3-point shooter, 23 points, 5 and 9 from beyond. You know, Lovich just absolutely killed him. I mean, anything he wanted, he got. And did you notice anytime they would shot fake on Ian Jackson, he bit every time. Ian Jackson personally probably has had the roughest, the most brutal beginning for a St. John's guard in the Rick Pitino era in the last couple seasons. And I know he's young, but that's not an excuse here. You know, he has not been able, clearly, to grow on the defensive side and on the offensive side in these big games, in these two big games. Just a rough start, to say the least, from him. And I can only imagine what Rick Pitino has been saying, or is saying to him right now, and will be saying to him. Because remember, we have 24 hours now. We're back on the court playing Baylor, a Baylor team that beat Creighton tonight by 7. What does that mean? I really don't know. I mean, the Big East right now, the teams that are playing their best are ones that we weren't anticipating heading into this season. I mean, UConn's playing well. We knew that. But Seton Hall getting a ranked win against NC State, the way Georgetown's been playing has been nice. I'm curious to see what Villanova looks like now after they've gotten, close to a month since that BYU game. Then you've got Butler's handling their business. But for St. John's, this out-of-conference schedule is tough. I mean, it's not easy. As we know, it's not easy. And through the first two games between Alabama and obviously Iowa State tonight, I think we saw a lot of very very same problems we have been seeing, or did see, shall I say, against Alabama. Not able to defend the outside shot, not able to get good looks from three, or should I say, I shouldn't say not getting good looks from three, not being able to knock down looks from the 3-point land. Really, really upsetting game tonight from St. John's. And they start off pretty well, get an early lead, and then Iowa State goes on an extended run there in the first half. A run that kind of lets you know early, okay, or had you feeling early, shall I say, that this could get out of hand if St. John's doesn't do something. Fortunately, they were able to turn it around. Down 10, they started to get Darling going a little bit. And then Osiah Sellers hit a three-pointer. Then Oz made a layup. And all of a sudden, a 10-point lead is now cut down to 5. Then we get to the under 8 timeout, down 8. And St. John's goes on another run led by Zuby Ejiofor and Bryce Hopkins. Bryce Hopkins, who I thought had a good game. The Wings had a good game. The Wings and Zuby had a good game in terms of scoring. I think they need to do a much better job on the defensive glass. That was a problem. I thought that those three were the glaring bright spots. And at times, Osiah Sellers as well. But it's just not enough. It's just not enough to be able to get a win against another ranked opponent. You go into these tournaments and it's a nice test because you get an early look at how your team does against big competition. And you also get an early look at, okay, how do we do when we have to play these back-to-backs that we're going to see throughout the season? Because early on, you play the schedule St. John's has thus far, and you're going to have, a game a week, or if you have 2 games a week, they're pretty well spread out. But as we get further and further into the season, as we get to conference play, you're going to have some times where it's going to be like every 2 days you're playing, sometimes every other day. So it's a good opportunity to get a look at, okay, you got back-to-back competition. Where it can hurt you is if you're playing that back-to-back competition and you go 0-2. And that's what St. John's is staring down right now as they're going to be taking on the Baylor Bears tomorrow. And with the way they've played thus far against Alabama and now against Iowa State, you saw 2 glaring similar issues down the stretch. Both times St. John's had leads with around 4 minutes, I believe, to go in the Alabama game. And St. John's went on a huge, long, extensive scoring drought. And then you saw the same thing tonight. Oz hits a big 3. Huge momentum swing. 2 straight big 3-pointers from him. And then St. John's is unable to capitalize moving forward. Because sure, okay, Iowa State goes down. They're able to make their shots, able to, sink 2 free throws to go up 3. But, so what? They go up 1 with 1:55 to play. You can't come down and get something to go. You can't get a high percentage shot. You can't create offensively in your half court. Then with around under 20 seconds to go, 12 seconds was the exact time that he missed the shot. But I think it was 29 seconds. Specifically, St. John's got the ball. They're advancing it. You have a timeout left. And it was so obvious when they were passing around, like they're not set. And Iowa State has been given the opportunity to set up defensively how they want to. St. John's is not backing them down. Why not call a timeout if you're Rick Pitino? I'm sure he's going to be fielding questions about that. And, we'll see what he says. Obviously, we'll be on tomorrow as well, live on YouTube here on the Big East Energy Network. We'll talk about that briefly, what Pitino's reasoning was, because then you see the next time down 3, Iowa State not fouling, call a timeout, because we're really going to put the ball in Zuby Ejiofor's hands. And it's not, I'm not blaming Zuby. He shouldn't be shot creating a 3 for himself. That's ridiculous. He's not a 3-point shooter. If you want to get Isaiah Sellers the ball there, you want to get anyone else the ball there, as a matter of fact. Maybe not anyone else, but for the most part, anyone else, the ball there, to have a chance to be able to take the lead. I mean, unbelievable. Really unbelievable. And the officials tonight, what are we doing? I mean, what are we doing? A ticky-tack out-of-bounds call that goes out on Zuby. There was no definitive evidence there that went out on Zuby. Then there was the blocking foul that I believe they got Mitchell for on the other end. They call Zuby for a foul late, and it really was Isaiah Sellers that should have been called for a foul. I'm not blaming the fact that there was a foul called, but they got the wrong player. I mean, they were not properly calling this game. And the out of bounds, the one that turned it over to Iowa State's possession, made no sense whatsoever. That was inconclusive, and there was really no reason as to why that would have been Iowa State ball. So a poor job by the officials in this one tonight. But that's not the reason why St. John's lost the game. You can't possibly go 2 minutes without a bucket, without a single point against this Iowa State team. And in 2 tests against top competition, St. John's has come up empty. But again, you're not going to do much when your backcourt is only managing 16 points in a game. That can't happen. And Sonone and Jackson both went 4 for 16. And Darling, who defensively was great, made plays around the ball, had some good passes, but he didn't exactly give it to you either. I mean, he was 1 for 4 from the field. And it combined, all 3 of them, 2 for 10 from three-point land. St. John's 7 for 20 tonight from 3. Iowa State 9 of 22. Not able to get good looks, not able to knock down shots, and get a rebound. The one thing I noticed about Iowa State was they were much longer in their wingspan. St. John's, I would have liked to have thought, with Hopkins out there, with Mitchell out there, with Ejiofor out there, they would have been able to rebound. They wouldn't have gotten that badly out-rebounded by Iowa State. That was really telling, and it's really telling early on what the problems are for St. John's. This was a rough loss. Honestly, a wild scenario at the end why you don't take a timeout. And now you're going to have to play Baylor tomorrow with a game that I don't, it's early. But you need to get a quality win in there. I don't know how many quality wins you're going to have in conference play. But not only that, if you do make the tournament, now granted, you might think in early March differently than you would in late December or in November. But you'd like to think, okay, we've seen how we've done against some of the top teams in the country and how we stack up. And right now, I'm sorry, St. John's not stacking up well against a Big 12 opponent now and an SEC opponent. Really head-scratching stuff tonight from the Johnnies. And you look over at Iowa State and you see what they were able to do. I mean, Momcilovic, 23 points again, 5 of 9 from beyond. Anything he wanted, he got. Anything Iowa State in general wanted, they got, especially early on. That Jefferson kid, who's I would have expected him to have led them in scoring. I thought all around heading into this game he was their best player. He had 17 points and 8 boards tonight. Lipsy, got banged up there at the end. He had 16 points. He was 2 of 6 from beyond, 5 assists as well. He was someone that I wouldn't say was as noticeable as Jefferson or Momcilovic, but not good enough. And like I said, the backcourt for St. John's defending really rough. And Ian Jackson, wow. Rick Pitino said on St. John's Media Day that he was concerned about him in the beginning of the summer. He wasn't too sure about him. What did he look like in the summer is my question. What did he look like in the summer then? Because this is arguably worse. I don't know, but I would assume this was arguably worse than that. Because how many times they shot faked on him and he bit, and they were able to sidestep, get a 3. And then the turnovers upon turnovers for him. I mean, that was another thing Rick Pitino mentioned. I think it was against Quinnipiac. He said, the best advice, I told Ian Jackson, the best advice a coach can give a player, don't turn it over to the other team. You're in a white jersey. Don't give it to the guys in the red jerseys. Well, same thing happened tonight. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? And you can't, and listen, I know the whole, you got to build chemistry. It's a new team. I get that. And I hope that they're going to be able to get better as the year goes on. I do, obviously. But the more and more you see this St. John's team these last 3 seasons, there's one glaring problem right away. Where is the 3-point shot? I know Oziah went 5 of 6 tonight from beyond, and good on him. But there were many times they had good looks from beyond, and they couldn't knock them down. I know Bryce Hopkins is not necessarily a 3-point shooter, but he had a couple opportunities there from beyond, and he couldn't hit it. Sannon, 1 of 4 from beyond. He had some good looks. The one thing Ian Jackson actually did do well was he hit an open 3-point shot on a play that he was able to create on his own. But aside from that, there wasn't much else, going for him there. Another guy that I thought had a solid game for St. John's was Dylan Mitchell. He had 12 points. He was, able to get a couple putbacks. He had 9 boards as well. He's someone that, in his time in the Big 12, he, of course, played against Iowa State. So I thought that could be a contributing factor for Iowa State or for St. John's, and Mitchell, and it kind of was. But ultimately, wow, really not a good night for St. John's. Now it's funny. It was very evenly matched, this game. If you just look at the statistics, if you look at the field goal percentage, Iowa State 44%, St. John's 43%. Iowa State had 11 turnovers, St. John's 10 points off turnovers. Iowa State 14, St. John's 13. Total rebounds, Iowa State 38, St. John's 36. It was just the little things that Iowa State did a much better job tonight against St. John's. But I feel like it's the little things that's going to keep St. John's back. They have to get better. They have to improve because, it's going to be the same result as last year. And this time with expectations. You didn't have expectations last year. Get knocked out in the tournament that early. It sucked, but you look back on it and you say, man, what a ride. 31 wins, winning the Big East Player of the Year. What a ride. And now you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, well, we're not catching anyone by surprise. A top 10 team, top 5 team to start the year. And if they want to keep that top 25 ranking, dare I say, tomorrow, I know I said earlier I wouldn't call it a must-win. For that matter, it is a must-win. St. John's is going to have to find a way because it's not going to get any easier tomorrow against the Baylor Bears. Again, we'll be back on tomorrow. We'll break that down as well. We'll go live as St. John's, they lose an opportunity to take one tonight against a formidable opponent in Iowa State. And they're going to try and be back tomorrow to get it done out in Vegas. We'll put this episode out. We'll have it as a recording, put it out for you on the Big East Energy Network. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to follow Johnny's Report on X. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.